For my 28th birthday, I rented a cabin by the lake, stocked a fridge, and sent out invitations weeks in advance. No one showed up. 2 days later, my sister posted a photo, family weekend, at another lake, 2 hours from mine. I didn't say a single word. I just stopped the payments, mom's mortgage, dad's truck lease, and that family loan everyone forgot. That night, Mom wrote, "Did something happen?" I replied, "Yes." I finally understood everything. I'm not one for making a scene. I've always believed life is about working hard and keeping your head down. But when I turned 28, something in me broke. It wasn't an outburst, no shouting, no tears. It was a heavy silence, like the one that filled the cabin I rented for my birthday by a quiet lake, a cabin that, in the end, only held me. It all started years ago. I work as an engineer for a construction company, a job that keeps me running from place to place with barely any time to breathe. I don't complain. The pay is good, and it lets me help my family. 3 years ago, Dad lost his job, so I started covering the lease on his truck, a pickup he uses for projects that never take off. I also took over Mom's mortgage for her simple house, which she calls home because of the memories. Then there's my sister Martina's loan, for which I was a guarantor because she swore it was for a business that would change her life. And let's not forget the family business. A car parts store in my name, though everyone treats it like it's theirs. I put in the money, time, and effort while they run it. I always felt there was a favor in my family, and it wasn't me. Martina, my younger sister, was always a star. Growing up, my parents celebrated everything she did. A good grade, a drawing, even a smile. I was a practical one, the one who fixed things without expecting applause. It didn't bother me much, or so I thought. But everything changed when Martina married Diego, a wealthy guy who seemed straight out of a movie. Suddenly, I wasn't just a hard-working older brother. I was a 27-year-old bachelor who didn't know how to live. Mom said it with a little laugh, like it was a joke, but her words stung. Dad, meanwhile, always talked about how well Martina was doing with Diego, as if my life was worth less because I didn't have a partner or a big house. When my 28th birthday approached, I wanted to do something different. I had a rare week off from work and decided to make the most of it. I rented a cabin by a lake a few hours from the city. It was a beautiful place with tall trees and a dock where the water sparkled. I bought food for a crowd, meat, beers, chips, even a chocolate cake because I knew Mom liked it. I sent invitations weeks in advance. Called my parents, Martina and Diego, and they all confirmed they'd come. It's going to be awesome. Mom said over the phone in that excited tone she uses. Martina texted, "We'll be there. It's going to be an unforgettable weekend." I arrived at the cabin Friday afternoon, my car loaded with supplies. I filled the fridge, set up the grill, and sat on the porch with a beer, looking at the lake. I was excited, which is rare for me. I don't usually throw parties, but this time I wanted it to be special. I wanted my family to see me, to not just be the guy who pays the bills for once. I waited for the sound of a car, but it never came. Hours passed, the sun set, and the cabin fell silent. Nobody showed up. I thought maybe there was traffic or some issue. I texted them, but no one replied. I called Mom, Dad, Martina. Nothing, just voicemail. I didn't push it. Maybe there was an emergency, I told myself. I stayed up late, sitting on the dock, watching the water. The cabin I'd imagined full of laughter was empty. Saturday morning, still holding on to some hope, I made breakfast, thinking they'd show up late. But the day passed and nothing. Sunday the same. I was alone, eating leftovers and trying not to think too much. I didn't want to feel like an abandoned kid, but it was hard. On Monday, I cleaned the cabin, packed up, and left. I didn't call anyone. I didn't want excuses. 2 days later, while checking my phone during a work break, I saw a notification from Martina on social media. It was a photo of her, Diego, Mom, and Dad, all smiling at another lake. The cabin behind them was huge, much fancier than mine. The caption read, "Family Weekend." I couldn't believe it. They were 2 hours from where I'd been, enjoying a weekend that never included my birthday. They didn't text or call. They were just there, as if I didn't exist. I didn't feel anger, not at first. I felt a clarity I'd never had before. I'd always been the one who gave, who sacrificed, who put the family first. And they always put Martina first. They saw me as the problem solver, not someone who deserved to be in the picture. That night, I made a decision. It wasn't impulsive, though it might seem that way. It was like solving a problem I'd ignored for years. I called the bank and canceled Mom's mortgage payments. I contacted the finance company and stopped Dad's truck lease. I went to the family business's lawyer and started the process to withdraw. The store was in my name, but they ran it. I also stepped down as Martina's loan guarantor. I didn't tell them anything. I just acted. That same night, Mom texted, "Did something happen?" Her message had a tone of surprise, as if she couldn't understand why I'd stopped paying. I sat on my apartment couch, phone in hand, and replied, "Yes, I finally understood everything." I turned off my phone and left it on the table. I didn't want more messages that night. I'd spent the weekend alone in a cabin I prepared with excitement, while my family was 2 hours away in a bigger cabin, laughing as if I didn't exist. I didn't need explanations. What I needed was to move forward. The days that followed were strange. I wasn't exactly angry. It was more like I'd opened my eyes after years of walking blindly. I stuck to my routine, work, gym, home, but in my head, things were changing. Every time I remembered Martina's photo with the caption, "Family Weekend," I felt a pang, but also a kind of relief. For the first time, I didn't feel obligated to rush to fix everyone's problems. On Friday, for days after my text to Mom, she called. I didn't answer. Then Dad texted, "Son, we need to talk. This thing with the truck and the house isn't right." I read it and ignored it. But that night, while eating pizza in my apartment, Mom called again. This time, I answered, not because I wanted to, but because I knew they wouldn't stop until I did. "What's wrong with you?" she said without a greeting, her voice more annoyed than concerned. "Why did you stop paying the mortgage and Dad's truck? The bank's calling us." I took a deep breath. "I have nothing to explain, Mom. You all chose to spend my birthday somewhere else. You didn't call, didn't text, nothing. I'm tired of being the one who gives everything while you act like I don't exist." There was a long silence. Then she said, "That's not fair. We were busy. It was a complicated weekend. Martina and Diego invited us, and we didn't think it was that important to you." "Not important," I repeated, feeling my blood boil. "You confirmed you'd come to my birthday, then left me hanging, and now you say it wasn't important?" "Don't take it personally," she said, raising her voice. "Martina invited us, and Diego paid for everything. We thought you'd be fine. You're always so busy with work. Besides, Diego can help with the house and truck if there's an issue. You don't need to do this." That hurt more than I expected. Not only had they left me alone, but now they were counting on Diego, Martina's husband, as if he were the family savior. I, who'd been paying their bills for years, was disposable. I hung up without saying anything else. I didn't want to argue. I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of seeing me upset. The next week, things got interesting. Dad called, saying the finance company had repossessed his truck. "I can't work without it," he shouted. I tried to explain it wasn't my problem anymore, but he kept talking about how I owed the family. I hung up. Then Martina sent a long text, saying she didn't understand why I was being so cruel, that her loan was in trouble because I'd stopped being her guarantor, and now the bank was pressuring her. "Please talk to us," her message ended. I didn't reply. 2 weeks later, I got unexpected news. A mutual friend told me Martina and Diego had split up. Apparently, she caught it with another woman, and things got ugly. Diego left, and Martina was left without his financial support. I couldn't help but laugh, not out of cruelty, but because it was ironic. Mom had put all her faith in Diego, as if he were the solution to everything, and now he was out of the picture. Meanwhile, the family business started to crumble. Since the store was in my name, I had the power to decide its fate. I told my lawyer to start dissolving it. Dad found out and called, furious, saying I was destroying the family legacy. I reminded him that legacy never included me. I just provided the money while they made the decisions. "If it means so much by me out," I said. He had no response. Mom started sending desperate texts. Her mortgage was in default, and the bank was threatening to foreclose. "Please, son, don't do this," she wrote one night. "We're your family." I read it and deleted it. It wasn't that I felt nothing. It was that I no longer felt obligated to save them. One night, Martina showed up at my apartment unannounced. She was disheveled, with dark circles under her eyes, carrying a bottle of wine as if it would smooth things over. "We need to talk," she said, walking in without waiting for an invitation. She sat on the couch and started talking about how Diego had manipulated her, how he convinced her not to go to my birthday, because he said I was too serious and wouldn't know how to have fun. "I was blinded," she said, tears in her eyes. "I didn't realize what I was doing. Please forgive me." I looked at her steadily. I wanted to believe her, but I couldn't. Her words sounded like a script, something she'd say to get her way. "Martina," I said, "you knew what you were doing. All of you did. It wasn't Diego, it was you. It's always been like this. I was the one who paid, who fixed things, and you all turned your backs on me every chance you got." She tried to interrupt, but I raised my hand. "No, I'm done. I'm not going back to being your guarantor. I'm not paying Mom's mortgage or Dad's truck, and I'm not keeping the store afloat. I'm out." Martina broke down, saying that without Diego, she couldn't pay the loan and was in serious trouble. "That's not my problem," I said. "You made your choices. Now face the consequences." After she left, I felt strange. Not satisfaction, not happiness, but like I'd closed a door that had been open for years, letting the cold in. I also felt free. A month later, things turned legal. Dad, desperate to save the store, tried to sue me, claiming I had no right to dissolve it. What he didn't know was that my lawyer had already reviewed everything. The store was in my name, and he had no documents to prove otherwise. The lawsuit failed, and the store was officially dissolved. Dad lost a truck, which had already been repossessed. Mom's house went into foreclosure, and she had to move to a small apartment. Martina started getting notices from the bank about the loan she couldn't pay. I won't lie. There were nights when I wonder if I'd gone too far. But then I'd remember the cabin, the silence, their photo laughing at another lake. I'd remember the times Mom said I didn't know how to live, or how Dad always talk about Martina like she was the only one who mattered. I'd remember how I'd sacrificed so much, working overtime, giving up trips, friends, my own life, just to keep them afloat, and they couldn't even bother to show up for my birthday. One night, Mom called again. Her voice sounded tired, not angry. "Son, I don't know what happened between us, but I miss you. Can we talk?" For a moment, I almost gave in. But then I remembered everything. The excuses, the priorities, the disregard disguised as jokes. "Mom," I said, "you know what happened? So do I. Now we each have to move on." I hung up and looked out my apartment window. The city was alive with lights and noise, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could be too. I didn't know what came next, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to be the one carrying everything anymore. The days that followed were a whirlwind. Dad kept texting, insisting the store was a betrayal, saying I was destroying everything he'd built, as if I hadn't been the one funding it. I replied once, short and clear, "The store's in my name. If you want to save it, buy me out." He didn't respond, and I knew he couldn't. Without the truck, which was already gone, and without my money, he had no way to move forward. Martina kept sending messages, first pleading, saying she was in a hole with the loan, that the bank was hounding her, that she needed my help. Then they turned harsher, accusing me of being selfish, of turning my back on the family. "I never thought you'd be like this," she wrote once. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because she was calling me selfish, the one who'd gone with Diego to a luxury cabin while I waited alone in mine. I didn't reply. I deleted her messages and moved on with my life. Mom was the most persistent, calling almost daily, leaving voicemails that started soft and ended with a tone of reproach. "I don't understand why you're doing this," she'd say. "You were always the responsible one, the one who kept us going, and now you're leaving us on the street." Hearing that twisted my stomach, not just because they blamed me, but because they never acknowledged what I'd done for them. I paid their mortgage, Dad's truck, Martina's loan, and still to them, I was the one who didn't know how to live. I decided to stop answering. I blocked their numbers for a while, just to have some peace. A couple weeks later, I heard from a cousin that Mom's house was officially in foreclosure. The bank gave no more extensions, and she had to move to a small apartment on the outskirts. It wasn't a bad place, but for her, who always talked about her house like it was a castle, it was a hard blow. My cousin also said Martina was selling things to pay the loan, her designer clothes, her jewelry, even the car Diego had bought her. Apparently, after the separation, he left her with nothing. Everything she had was borrowed, and now the bank was coming for it all. The family business, meanwhile, was dead. After my lawyer completed the dissolution papers, Dad tried to fight, but he had nothing to back him up. The store was in my name, and he'd never bothered to formalize his share. When the judge dismissed his claim, he called me furious, saying I was a traitor, that I should never have been part of the family. "You're not my son," he shouted before hanging up. Those words stayed with me for a bit, but they didn't sink me. I'd spent years trying to be the perfect son, the perfect brother, and in the end, it didn't matter. They'd always chosen Martina. One day, while having coffee at Plaza near work, I got an email from Martina. It wasn't a short message like the others. It was long, almost like a letter. She said she was sorry, that Diego had manipulated her, that she didn't mean to hurt me. "We're family, and you ruined it," she wrote. "Please, let's talk. I don't want to lose you." She mentioned she was working at a clothing store to pay her debts, that she had nothing left. She ended by asking me to help her, to be her guarantor again, to talk to the bank. I read the email twice. Part of me, the part that remembered the Martina from when we were kids, wanted to believe her, but the other part, the one that saw their photo laughing at that lake, knew I couldn't trust her. It wasn't just a birthday, it was everything. Years of feeling invisible, of being the one who always stepped up while they celebrated Martina. I replied with one line, "I'm sorry, but no. Take care." And I sent it. A month later, things got more complicated. Dad, desperate, tried one last move. He hired a cheap lawyer and filed another lawsuit, claiming I'd used a family business to enrich myself. It was an absurd lie, but it forced me to spend time and money defending myself. My lawyer, who already knew the case, laughed when he saw the papers. "This is going nowhere," he said, and he was right. The judge dismissed it in a week. But the attempt showed me Dad wasn't going to stop. He wanted to blame me for everything, as if he had no part in the mess. Meanwhile, Mom changed tactics. She started sending messages through aunts and cousins, saying she was sick, that she needed help. I talked to my cousin, the only one who'd always been honest with me, and he confirmed it wasn't true. She was fine, just desperate to get my attention. "She wants you to pay the mortgage again," he said. "She doesn't know how to live without your help." That hurt, but it didn't surprise me. It had always been like that. I was the safety net, the one who fixed everything. Over time, things calmed down, not because my family gave up, but because they had no way to keep fighting. Mom's house was foreclosed, and she stayed in the apartment. Dad, without the truck or the store, started working as a delivery driver, something I never thought he'd do. Martina, I heard, was still struggling with the loan. A friend said he'd seen her working as a waitress at a restaurant. I didn't feel pity, not because I was cruel, but because each of them had chosen their path. As for me, I started living for real. With the money I no longer spent on my family, I paid off some of my own debts and treated myself to a trip. I went to the beach, something I hadn't done since I was a kid. I walked on the sand, listened to waves. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I had to be somewhere else fixing someone else's problems. I also started going out more with friends, laughing more, sleeping better. It wasn't a perfect life, but it was mine. One night, almost 6 months after my birthday, I got a final message from Mom. I wasn't expecting it. It was short, without pleas or reproaches. "I know we hurt you," she wrote. "I don't expect you to forgive me, but I want you to know I love you." I read it several times, sitting on my couch with a beer in hand. I wanted to reply, but didn't know what to say. In the end, I put the phone away and let the silence speak for me. Looking back, I don't regret anything. The empty cabin, their photo at another lake, the fights, the lawsuits, it all led me to where I am now. I'm not the hero of this story, but I'm not the villain either. I'm just a guy who, after years of giving everything, decided to give something to himself. And for me, that's enough.